Okay, and we're back. So this is the third and final section of the Programmable Communications Review, where we look at what happened through 2020 and 2021, look at my predictions from 2020, why they were sort of right and wrong, and looking at what's going to happen going forward into 2022 and 2023. So let's just review what happened over the past nearly 2 years. Well, let's think back to January 2020. It was the Australian bushfires that were keeping us concerned, that is global warming. Industry discussion was, how can Zoom maintain its current valuation? Growth was without a doubt, but 85% through the rest of 2020. That was considered tough. Similarly with Twilio, in part because of its poor categorization. I hope by now everybody gets it. It's so much more than a CPaaS. Analysts get it wrong all the time, okay? It's programmable communications. We saw some acquisitions. Enghouse bought Dialogic, Comcast, which was interesting, bought Blueface, that's unified communications. Cinch bought Chatler, chatbot stuff. Serenova, Lifesize merged. And then in March, the lockdowns began. And the last time I traveled, that for 18 months. So moving into quarter two. Well, we had America finally had enough of police brutality and got up and protested finally. M&A also started to get into gear. We saw Cinch buying Wavy, so that was giving it greater control over the Latin American business messaging market. Microsoft did a couple of interesting acquisitions in buying Affirm Networks and Metaswitch. So that gave it really quite significant control over the core of operators' networks. 8x8 did an acquihire buying callstats.io, so it has now the ability to measure call performance with WebRTC. Verizon bought BlueJeans, so conferencing. So again, this was interesting that we were seeing telcos buying into programmable comms. Cinch did the big one though, buying SAP Digital Interactive. It bought half of the duopoly for A2P messaging in the US. Aircall, which is just an app on Twilio, raised 65 million on a $500 million valuation, and Matrix gave a much more modest raise of 4.6 million. Now, as the results started to come in towards the end of Q2 2020, Zoom generated 169% year-over-year growth. Remember, we were sort of questioning whether 85% was going to be possible. The pandemic had a big impact on their business. MessageBird formally pivots to business messaging from CPaaS and aggregation. Moving into quarter three, well, of course, we had the massive Beirut explosion that's still impacting the country today. M&A continues. Agora raised 350 million. I had it just in the category of in-app communications. I mean, it's more than that now, but again, it was a massive raise given where its business focus is. Infobip raised 200 million. Payphone, that's identity, raised 100. Bix Telesign were put up for sale. Cineverse split in prep for likely M&A. An SPAC, special purpose acquisition vehicle, bought Candy. Intrado bought Unsip. Dialpad acquired High5. Autoroute had its IPO. Now, RingCentral was on a partnership role with partnering with Unify, Avaya, Alcatel-Lucent Enterprise, and a whole list of telcos. So they sort of become the default partner for delivering unified communications to large enterprise accounts through those channels. Twilio achieved 132% revenue growth, lots of web-centric customers. RingCentral, more modest growth of 32% because it's more of a bit mixed bag of customers. By Q4, the path to the vaccine was clear. So we had a solution to the pandemic finally. Capgemini sold its contact center business. Element bought Gitter. MessageBird raised 200 million after just pivoting. Dialpad raised 100 million. Bandwidth buys Foxbone. That's consolidation in phone number provisioning. Twilio bought Segment. I mentioned that previously, in focusing on cleaning up customer data. to provide far better insights, especially when you're using machine learning. Inference chatbot bought Five9. Infobit bought Open Market, so that's significant consolidation in the messaging aggregation space. Salesforce.com bought Slack. Cisco bought IMI Mobile. I've commented about that acquisition. IMI is a bit of a mixed bag of, it's business messaging, but there's lots of other stuff hidden away there as well. Alianza bought Counterpath. Big ID raised 70 million on $1 billion valuation. Again, that's identity verification. Cinch raised $1 billion. Well, we're going to find out pretty soon what it used that $1 billion for. In Q1 of this year, the vaccines finally started rolling out. And we all thought, yay, the end is near. So on M&A side, Socure and Xeon are both in identity management. They had raises. Pindrop bought Nextcaller, that's in the contact center space. Think acquired Cameo, and we'll see later changed its name to Cameo. Some UC consolidation with Crescendo, acquired NetSapiens. Genesis bought Chatbot, Bold 360. We saw some interesting web consolidation on identity management. So this is more on the cloud side, but the two are going to converge because identity is identity. And that's Okta buying Auth0. This one's very interesting. Gamma bought Mission Labs. Gamma is a telco. It packages up telco services and delivers it to enterprises. Mission Labs had a whole range of enterprise communication services, UC, contact center, that had built up on open source. So this gives Gamma now the ability to own the roadmap, the product, the experience. It enables it to deliver with margin to enterprises rather than having to resell somebody else. Twilio invests in Cineverse, so it can sort of deal with the fact that Cinch has bought, essentially now a competitor with SAP Digital Interactive. It also bought Value First, which is an Indian sort of aggregator CPaaS provider. We saw consolidation in more messaging with Kalyera buying Mgage. Cinch bought IntelliQuint, so that's what it used that $1 billion for, and that's voice. So with SAP, it got the messaging piece, messaging duopoly, and then it bought out a big piece of the voice aggregation business in North America. Proximus acquired Bix and Telesign. Sangoma was bought, Star2Star was bought by Sangoma. Now, they're principally UC, but they also have CPaaS capabilities. So again, interesting to see that sort of, another CPaaS going into Sangoma. Yak, which is a chat service around Slack, raised 7.5 million. More UK focused, but telco switch bought OneStar after it recently raised some cash. Enghouse bought Altitude Software. So Altitude Software is a contact center as a service based out of Portugal. And Equifax, which of course is credit card ratings, buys Count, which is identity management. So again, it's interesting. We're starting to see identity management getting gobbled up, not just by programmable communications, but by some of the big established enterprise players. So the world we're starting to see now is converging with some of these acquisitions. Then in Q2, I show the pictures from the, again, I'm surprised it hasn't had more coverage in the news of the, I think, 1,300 children's bodies that were found at particular schools in Canada. Horrific story. That came to light during this quarter. But focusing on M&A, on the API side, UiPath acquires Cloud Elements. Big one for both telco and programmable comms. Microsoft buys Nuance. So Nuance, of course, speech rec. Big piece within healthcare and within telco as well. Nuance supplies a whole range of legacy speech rec services that telcos struggle to basically rationalize. Hence, Nuance continues to make a good bit of money out of. Telco switch bought again. New quarter, new acquisition, PBX hosting. Wire raised 21 million. MessageBird buys SparkPost. So remember when Twilio bought SendGrid, which was, it said it's email API company. No, it was just email marketing. SparkPost is email marketing. And it closed a $1 billion round. Mavenir had a raise by the Koch brothers. Yes, those Koch brothers. Infobip acquires Anam or messaging consolidation. SoftBank invests about 60 million in Asiata Digital. Can't remember what the other A is for, but if you check out on my weblog, I did a keep an eye on Malaysia. Some very interesting stuff happening there in terms of telco innovation. Twilio finally gave up suing ZipWhip. ZipWhip is an example of the dysfunctionality of the US messaging market, essentially given a monopoly on 1-800-SMS, and they did a very good job on really messing that up. But now they no longer need to take them to court. They bought them. Let's see what happens in terms of finally 1-800-SMS opening up. Intelopia had a raise. Five9 and Mitel announced a strategic partnership. Cinch raised another $1 billion. We'll see where that goes in a minute. SignalWire raised 30 million. Cinch, there you go, didn't take long, buys Message Media for 1.2 million. A smaller size, but still very interesting. Webio raised $500,000 from Finch Capital. Webio, again, another very interesting programmable comms company. And Stripe raises $1 billion for identity verification. So again, what are they going to buy in the programmable comms space? Looking at Q3, we finally got the Olympics in some amazing times. Verizon bought Precise Positioning. It's part of the Swedish mafia, but it's still nice to see telcos actually, buying cool stuff. Aircall, remember, an app on Twilio, raised 120 million on a $1 billion valuation. 1 year, doubled its valuation. Russia's MTS acquires telecom and CPaaS provider MTT. Caliera acquires Bangia, that's WebRTC. It's more an acqui-hire. Broad Voice buys GoContact. That's our sponsors for TAD Summit. Zoom buys, then doesn't, Five9. It's a scale thing. So that's a good example where with this sort of convergence of UCaaS, CCaaS, they need to be, more targeting small, medium. When the big guys, the benefits of that consolidation, it's less clear. Element raised 30 million after that more conservative raise last year. SureVoIP was bought by Telco Switch. Again, another quarter, another acquisition. TalkDesk completes its Series D and raises at a 10 billion valuation. Again, used to be an app on Twilio, but once Twilio started competing with it with Flex, they then did deals direct with the aggregators. Microsoft bought Peer5, which is WebRTC content distribution. Cineverse to go public via a special purpose acquisition vehicle. Mavenir buys Telestacks. So Telestacks is a CPaaS enabler. Comcast Business buys Massagey. Again, interesting to see telcos buying companies in this space. Toku raised 5 million. They were positioning as CPaaS. They're more sort of Microsoft Teams enabler, dealing with all this sort of SIP trunking and communications issues that you have across the heterogeneous Asian markets. Korea Telecom Corp acquires Epsilon Telecom. So they've been a presenter at TAD Summit many times, and they bought them out. TransUnion, another sort of credit rating company, buys Newstar. So again, very interesting to see how identity, programmable comms, and some of these large enterprise providers are merging. Also, this one we've seen several acquisitions of aggregators and CPaaS providers buying email marketing. Intuit, which sells TurboTax, but it's sort of small medium enterprise software provider or software as a service provider, buys MailChimp, which is email marketing. Wazo, yay, to Sylvain and the guys raised 7.5 million. Think acquires a messaging API platform, Telly, and rebrands as Cameo. And then Cinch bought Messenger People. That's chat. It's sort of chat, but it's a aggregator across IP messaging with, sort of whole wrap for brands to be able to manage their communication over those channels. And then in the final quarter, of course, it's still going on, but Cinch acquired Pathwire for 1.9 billion. So they, again, that's a bit rich, but it's similar, in line to the Inuit and MailChimp acquisition in terms of sort of revenue to value. So that's email marketing. So again, Twilio led the way, and we've seen from a number, MessageBird, and a number of other providers acquiring email messaging. And it's not just an email API, it's all the processes around sort of integrating with, say, an e-commerce site on how and when to send the different messages. So there's a lot of sort of, process integrations with email marketing that then can naturally be extended into SMS and IP-based messaging. RuMobile, that went IPO last year, bought Massive, which is a business messaging provider in Latin America. So again, expanding their reach. And Vonage buys a conversational commerce startup, Jumper AI. There's lots more deals coming along. But again, just to show how intense, we thought 2020 was intense in terms of M&A, 2021 was even more. And we've got many more deals I think we'll see being announced, and many more quite large investments coming through in the end of this year and into 2022. So last year I made some predictions. Let's see how badly I did. So I was predicting for 2021 it's going to be a long, hard slug through the first half. Lockdowns, misinformation, division, high infection rates, slow vaccine rollout. Oh, yeah, pretty true. But the summer will bring vastly lower infection rates and the removal of many lockdowns. Sort of true. I mean, that did happen in June. But let me just jump ahead. It sort of got a bit messy. So this is US. So the Delta variant hit sort of, into July, and then things went a little pear-shaped. Some of it was, of course, the variants, but also vaccine reluctance. And I'm not going to go into a rant. All I recommend you do is read Dietrich Bonhoeffer's letters from prison. He was arrested by the Nazis. He's a theologian, done some amazing work, but I particularly liked some of his work while he was in prison before they killed him. Now, for the millennials that don't like reading long letters, there's a really nice YouTube video that summarizes some of the key points in his ideas. And it was Q4 for when vaccination certificates enabled international travel to the US. So we'll slowly see that gap on travel, and by next year, I would say Q2, we should be getting back to that full 100% TSA travel. Now, that's assuming we don't see another variant, because we have back to the vaccine reluctance because of Facebook, it's evil, and a whole host of stupidity. We're basically making a rod for our own backs in not getting vaccinated. I mean, we could have, by now, have had it done and dusted. We haven't. It's very frustrating. But kids were back to school in Q3. We're still seeing lockdowns, unfortunately. But, masks will remain. And as you saw, vaccination certificates, but not Q3, Q4, back to the Delta variant. So by the end of 2022, we'll have jumped ahead 10 years. Absolutely. We were putting in the Band-Aids. What happened this year was slightly different, though. It wasn't so much a consolidation of as a service with legacy. It was like, damn, the pandemic's continuing. So it was basically sort of taking what were Band-Aids and sort of, making them sort of, okay, this is business as usual. So what we're going to see through 2022, plus, again, some predictions that, as I say, with all my predictions, the only thing I guarantee with them is they're wrong. It's going to be a long, hard slog in 2022 and 23 for many developing countries. The vaccination rollouts are very low. And that gives a massive population and a significant chance for another potent variant that could actually, if it starts attacking the protein spike, could get around the current vaccinations that we have in place. So, again, all we had to do was roll it out, and that's just a rod for our own back. Now, COVID is endemic in the human population. So through 2022, we're likely to see 3 days in, 2 days remote, a limited clawback on as-a-service communications. It's here to stay. It's more legacy systems are being end-of-lifed into all the as-a-service stuff. So what that means is, through 2022-23, cost benefits have become clear. We're moving out of this emergency mode of just do it, oh bugger, it's here to stay, we really do need to keep these contracts running on, to 2022-23, a new phase in cost competition. Because what's going to happen is, all these cloud communication services will now, are the norm. So this migration from legacy is going to happen faster than I was predicting, because we've had 2 years now and it's proven itself, the costs are understood. We're going to start to see cost competition. That's why you're seeing so much consolidation, acquisitions, as you gain scale. But many enterprises don't want UC. I don't know how many times I have to keep saying it. They just want a phone system that works. They have other options. They have other systems. Or they're a small, medium enterprise and they don't need all this chat stuff. SMS works fine. So satisficing is going to be very important. That's going to be a great opportunity for lots of small, medium-sized companies in the space. And also, as a consultant to many businesses, Teams really sucks. It just treats me like some dirty third-rate citizen that has to be sort of, limited functionality, and it's just a pain in the ass to use Teams. And it doesn't work on so many different platforms. But anyway, enough ranting on. Experience is going to matter a lot more than it has, because it's now business as usual. So looking out the next 2 years, consolidation, into business as usual, and then we're going to see competition to win this, because all the enterprise accounts are up for grabs now. You've had the sort of quick fix solutions were put in, but now this is going forward into 23, 4, 5, 6. Then we're going to see some pretty significant price competition, but also better customer focus and better experiences for people, because they're now using this, for the long run. Now, another mistake I made was I said, hey, it'll just be like the Spanish flu in 1919. People quickly get over it. Now, thank God we didn't have as a percentage as many deaths as back as 1919, but we are being reminded daily that COVID is here to stay. So it's a very different dynamic, unfortunately, to 1919, where it just blasted through the population because there wasn't any vaccination possible. And herd immunity was achieved with a massive death toll. So looking out, well, there's no new normal. Work from home, flexible working, hot desking, distributed global teams existed before the pandemic. It's just become a little bit more common. That's all. Big corporations were often work from home when not in meetings. Though, to be frank, like countries like Germany, you are seeing a lot more flexibility around work. It's not about being in the office. Especially for small, medium companies, they often need to work together. It's just... It needs that human interaction, that trust, and that speed. And human behavior hasn't changed. People in the boss's face are still likely to get promoted. So I see it. If the boss isn't in on Monday and Friday, nobody's in. If the boss is in on Monday and Friday, guess who's in on Monday and Friday? So there's, I'm seeing a lot of variability across different companies and the cultures there. Now, we will forget what 2020, 2021 felt like, but it's not going to be this year. It's not going to be next year, maybe 2023, as long as a new potent variant doesn't emerge. But unfortunately, we have a massive unvaccinated population, and people are just tired. Mask protocols, sanitation protocols, I see, are just, people aren't adhering to them anymore. It's just creating the conditions for another variant, unfortunately. So in all our planning, we have to include that in there. Now, we have jumped forward in time. As I mentioned, 75 billion in 2021 and growing fast. The smartphone recognizing this voice, messaging, camera, browser capability, and all the contextual information around that device and the user remains relatively untapped. We've witnessed unprecedented consolidation in the market, but we've seen a lot of new companies come out. So it's both expansion in the number of companies, consolidation on, and some including acquihire. And I think this is part of the really interesting dynamic. As you saw through 2021, we got more enterprise web companies buying into this space or buying similar companies that the programmable comms companies are buying. Okta, which is sort of cloud identity, will need more than 2FA for mobile authentication. We've seen email marketing companies being bought by other than programmable comms. So again, there's a big, convergence we're seeing between a number of different industries with sort of services enabled by programmable comms at the core. So I always think of programmable comms as telecoms done in a web way. The question is, are telcos or enterprise web companies more likely to act fast? Well, clearly the answer is it's enterprise web companies are the ones that are making the moves, that are making the investments, that are making the acquisitions. So programmable comms will continue to be very interesting to live in even after the pandemic. So I have lots of resources you can get access to. So go to my blog. There's my CX Tech newsletters. So all that M&A stuff, it's all in there with my opinions. There's the TAD Summit weblog. Go there. You can get access to all the presentations that we make at TAD Summit. The agenda drives everything. So from the agenda for TAD Summit 2020, EMEA Americas or Asia, you go to the agenda and then you can just click through to all the weblogs from there that have the videos, the slides, commentary, and the Q&A. And I'm here, independent analysis, insight, advice, strategy, thought leadership, business, market development. I know quite a few people. For anything communications, telecoms related, just contact me. Thank you. And just to wrap up, we're hoping that, COVID variant dependent, that we will have a in-person event for TAD Summit 2022, mid-November in Aveiro, the Venice of Portugal, thanks to GoContact Broadvoice. So that's where GoContact HQ is. So it will be very nice. I must admit, I'm looking forward, and I will be making it into a family holiday if we do finally make it out to Aveiro. So again, thank you so much. Take care. Speak to you soon.